our friends at EA has been talking about going private because they had a deal going on with a couple of people. I have talked about this a couple of days ago. I think on Saturday's stream I talked about this, uh, about how they might be going private. And there's Saudi Arabia's private investment fund, PIF. It's a group called Silver Lake that's involved, and apparently Jared Kushner's Affinity Partners involved. So there's a bunch of people, bunch of groups making this buyout happen for Electronic Arts. As of the last time I talked about this, which was on Saturday, they were still in negotiation, and they were offering $50 billion, which is slightly above the market cap for what EA was worth. I think from memory it was sitting at 42 billion, and just as the news got announced last weekend, it shot up to like 48 billion, the stock prices. I'm not a finance guy, so take whatever I say with a grain of salt, but this is my understanding of it all. However, they have gone ahead and agreed to sell themselves, EA, to those groups I mentioned before at $55 billion. That's a B. It's well above what their market cap was. From what I understand, market cap is they look at what the share value is, and then they sort of multiply that with how many shares we got, and then that's your market cap. And it was sitting at like 42 billion. That value went up, shot up last weekend when they were in talks of selling to these Saudi PIF and Silver Lake. And then now it's gone further up, and now they agreed to make the deal happen at $55 billion. So that's what's happened, which means EA is going private. It's no longer going to be a public company. And I do have some thoughts. It is apparently the biggest leverage buyout to ever happen, pretty much in the recent history. I mean, in the history of leverage buyouts. I'll get to in a minute what a leverage buyout is. Saudi Arabia's PIF, which I have talked about before, they've been getting their hands on pretty much everything they can in the past few years, and we've been hearing more and more about them. If you remember, I did talk about how they have funded a DLC with Ubisoft, Assassin's Creed Mirage, which is obviously set in Middle East. So they have funded this DLC, which will be coming out soon, and it's a free DLC or something. So it's been entirely funded by PIF, and yeah, there's that. And they've been sort of getting their hands on pretty much whatever they can. It's not just gaming, like any other space, and kind of makes sense, right? Saudi Arabia is a rich country and they have oil, but I mean, they're not stupid. They can't leverage oil forever, right? So oil is something that's one thing, it's going to be running out. And also, we as a society globally kind of moving away from using crude oil, especially with vehicles, and we're going to be slowly moving away from it eventually. And they're not going to be able to rely on just selling crude oil at some point. So they are slowly trying to expand their reach into other areas and diversify what they can leverage on. And one of them is gaming, which makes sense because gaming industry is very profitable and it's one of the biggest. So yeah, and we got Kushner's Affinity Partners and Silver Lake leading the buyout. Existing EA shareholders received 210 per share, which is at a 25% premium. Okay. All right. EA portfolio crucial amid industry downturn, analysts say. Saudi Arabia's aim to diversify economy with gaming investment. There you go. That's just what I said. So video game developer Electronic Arts has agreed to sell itself to a group of private investors into a deal that values the makers of Battlefield and Madden NFL at 55 billion, which if completed would be the largest leverage buyout in history. Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, Jared Kushner's Affinity Partners, and private equity firm Silver Lake came together to buy the popular video game maker with a combination of 36 billion in cash, equity already held by PIF, and 20 billion in debt financed by JP Morgan, the company said Monday. Okay, so let me break it down. So, leverage buyout means that this buyout is happening with a significant sum being used as debt. So, essentially, it's a financial transaction where a company is acquired using a significant amount of borrowed money from a bank, uh, which is essentially debt, to finance the purchase. With the target companies, in this case, Electronic Arts own assets used as collateral. So this is a kind of a risky move. It also means that essentially they're going to have to find a way to actually pay back that $20 billion of debt back to JP Morgan. That's what it means. After this buyout, they can't just be like fine and dandy with the purchase. They're going to have to do everything they can to make Electronic Arts as profitable as they can so they can pay off that debt back to JP Morgan. Otherwise, the company assets will be seized by the bank, right? Which is crazy. It's a kind of a risky move, but they must have a lot of confidence in Electronic Arts to actually go ahead and make this purchase, given that this is the biggest leveraged buyout in history. It says here for PIF, Saudi Arabia's 1 trillion wealth fund, the investment is a massive opportunity to push ahead with efforts to become a global hub for games and sports, as it bets on the enduring value of blockbuster game franchises as the industry recovers from a prolonged downturn. There are obviously concerns about this. Like when I was talking about this on Saturday, I did mention that, obviously if this goes ahead and this buyout happens and EA does end up going private, which is going to be the case now, that it could lead to staff cuts, because time and again we have seen that happen with these kind of acquisitions, right? It happened with Embracer Group. I have talked about this, and they acquired a bunch of studios, and literally months later, most of them end up hitting the dust. Microsoft, same thing happened with the big buyout they had with Activision. Microsoft bought Activision and all the studios under Activision, and just a couple of months ago, they laid off like 2,000 something staff from Xbox studios, including smaller studios involving Activision, etc., which was really sad. So this happened quite a lot because what they acquire these companies, but then they realize they can't keep up, and in order to make a profit and keep it profitable, they have to cut cost. And what's the easiest way to cut cost? Is to let go of stuff that you don't need. And it's a reality of any company. I mean, all companies do that. It's not just like Microsoft or Embracer Group. It just sucks when it happens because people and their livelihoods are affected by this, and you can see it very clearly. But yeah, this happens, and I'm not sure. I mean, I did talk about how they have all these IPs under EA that are making, like Respawn and DICE, Battlefield Studios now. All these IPs that are sitting under EA and all these studios that are working under EA, they could all be affected in some form. And now that this buyout is happening as a leverage buyout, which means they do have to worry about keeping the company as profitable as they can and possibly increase that profitability so they can pay off those debts. We might actually see some of the staff cuts coming sooner than later. And that's the reality of the situation. But on the other hand, it's not all doom and gloom. On the other hand, we do have some silver lining with EA going private. The other thing that we can expect to happen is now that EA doesn't have to report every 3 months. I think that's how often you have to do reporting on your financials and everything when you're a public company in US. You don't have to do that anymore as a private company, which means they now have the freedom to leverage that private status to think long term or plan for long term projects, because now they don't have to worry about their shareholders or try to please them every 3 months. That's the thing with being a public company, right? When you're a public company, you do have to always worry about your numbers, and you always have to worry about short term and constantly turning out profits. So your vision for long term is pretty limited in some ways, in finance wise, right? So it's really hard to plan for a long game when you're a public company, because you do have to worry about short term a lot. When you're private though, you don't have to disclose any of that, which means you do have a bit more leverage when it comes to planning for long-term projects, which could be what EA needs to actually, put that creativity back in Electronic Arts and, get some of those IPs going again. Because as you probably know, with, Dragon Age and Mass Effect and, BioWare, like literally just sucking ass for the past few games they have released, right? Anthem, what a disaster, right? So, even like putting out games like Immortals of Avium, which kind of sucked. They were hoping for big successes with these games, but they just weren't hitting quite that. And I think they would be able to probably plan a little bit more and think a little bit more long term, and probably put out more quality games as a result of that. So it could be a good thing for EA, I reckon. Let me know what you guys think, because yeah, I think that could be the silver lining for EA going private, but you never know. But the other thing, like I said, yeah, you do have the potential to have staff layoffs and all that, which could be affecting. There could be some obvious restructuring going on. So yeah, it could go either way. We just don't know. And also there are concerns with some people with now Saudi private investment fund now owning a company like EA. What could be the repercussions of that, right? It is a Middle Eastern company. I don't know how. I mean, they're financially backing the company now, but is that going to enable EA to increase its focus on long-term growth opportunities, which may have been viewed as too risky or expensive as a public company? Or is it going to uh, limit their creativity because of what comes with being attached to a Middle Eastern entity? Don't know. We just don't know if there are going to be limitations or not. But we're just going to have to wait and see. And I think they do have a win here with Battlefield 6 releasing pretty soon, and people have welcomed the new latest entry to the Battlefield series, and including myself. I bought the Phantom Edition and I can't wait to play the game. And I think a lot of people will be jumping in, and it's going well. And it could be the win that Arts has been waiting for, and it could be the start of EA bouncing back and just start putting out good games again. Let me know what you guys think. This could be good for EA, but also there will be some definitely downsides to going private that we need to look out for, like layoffs, and we'll see how it goes. There's another article here from PC Gamer where EA CEO says company values will remain unchanged under the new ownership of Saudi Arabia and Jared Kushner's investment firm. Okay. Electronic Arts CEO Andrew Wilson says company's acquisition by a consortium made up of Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, Jared Kushner's Affinity Partners investment firm, and private equity firm Silver Lake represents a new era of opportunity. Our values and our commitment to players and fans around the world remain unchanged. That's what he says. Wilson shared a sentiment in a memo sent to employees. Shortly after the deal, valued at 55 billion, was made public. This moment is a recognition of our creativity, your innovation, and your passion, Wilson said. You have built some of the world's most iconic IP, created stories that have inspired global communities and helped shape culture through interactive experiences. Everything we have achieved and everything that lies ahead is because of you. So this is a memo sent to employees. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much like standard memo CEOs will send out to their employees when an acquisition or a merger happens, just assuring, yeah, we're not going to change, nothing's going to change, everything's going to stay the same, don't worry, blah blah blah, like we are still the same company, like, they say that, but that's just standard memo. I don't want to believe it until I see it. That's just my stand on it. I have been through an acquisition and a merger myself, in a previous life, and yeah, this is pretty standard. You'll hear this from CEOs, and that's what they're supposed to do. They try to keep everything calm, everybody calm, and not to start a panic. So they do this, but real changes do happen weeks and months following the acquisition or the merger, which is what we are waiting for, right? We're not going to see any major change happening just yet because they just made the deal, but we just have to wait and see what changes they're going to be making in the coming weeks or coming months. It'll be a gradual thing. It's not going to be like an overnight, oh shit, everything's changed thing, but it'll be step by step, gradual, very minimal at the beginning, and then getting more noticeable with time goes. As the time goes, we just have to see. Excuse me for not taking the chairman's, the CEO's vote of confidence as to remaining unchanged, because it's not always possible when you go through a merger. Not a merger, a buyout or acquisition like this. There's always going to be some changes. So we'll see. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this whole buyout. I mean, as players, I don't think there's anything to worry about immediately for us. For devs, obviously there are some things to worry about there, as we talked about. As players, we're not going to see immediate effects of this acquisition anytime soon. We will eventually start seeing some changes as a result of this in the coming months or coming years. But as of right now, I think there's not much to worry about. It's just a deal going through. It's a business deal that happened, and the world will keep spinning.